Hello, welcome back to another video of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Financial Operation tutorial series. In this video, we will talk about container. Okay, so first we'll understand that what is container, why it is required, few features of container, then gradually we'll move to the practical scenario as well. Okay, so for each and everything that you want to learn, so you have to learn the basics of that particular topic in depth. Then it will be easier for you to understand the complex code as well. So let's start understanding why container is required. As you can see that in this page, you can see that we have written why container is required. You already know that in X++ programming language, the data or value is stored in a variable. Okay, and if you want to store 500 or 600 values in a variable, so in that case a simple variable or primitive type of data type will not be able to store that particular data, right? So we already discussed about the primitive data type. So in case of primitive data type, they will not be able to hold this kind of data. We know that to store the data we have below types of data type, right? Primitive data type, in case of we already discussed about the extended data type, composite data type, as well as the collection classes we have. We will discuss about collection class in our later videos, and also you know about the array, I hope. Now the problem here, you have to understand the point that in case of primitive data type, variable can hold only one variable, and that too of same data type. So whatever the variable you will declare, so you have to store that particular type of data on that particular variable. So and now, for example, if you want to store 500 values, then you have to create or declare 500 variable, and then you have to initialize them. And also it does not support the variable of different type different data type in a single variable. Okay, so that's why to overcome this problem, the X++ programming language or AX or D365 F4 provides the composite data type arrays or containers. So if you want to store a sequence or 500 600 values in a single variable, so for that case you can use arrays and containers. But remember this point, there is a difference between the arrays or container. Okay, so what is the main difference? In case of array, to solve the problem you can do that, but you have to remember one point, that in array we can store single type of data type. So if you are not understanding, let me give one example, then it will be more clear for you. So in this slide you can see that we have a code, right? So in that case we have declared integer array 5, that means it can hold 5 values inside it, and all the values should of the integer data type. If you want to store any kind of string inside this particular array, then it will throw you the error that this particular is not a integer. So that's why I am not be able to store this string inside the array. Okay, so if you'll try to execute the code, you will get a compile time error, and it will say cannot implicitly convert from the type str to type integer. Okay, so that's why you have to remember that if you will declare a variable with a specific data type, then that particular array can only store that particular type of data inside it. But in case of container, there is no restriction like that. So inside the container you can store different types of value. For example, inside it you can store integer, you can store all primitive data type, as well as you can also store inside it as a composite data type. So you can store other composite data type inside a container. Okay, so that's why we require, or there is a necessity of container in case of X++ programming language. So now let's move to some features of container. So now in this point, below point, you can see, so before going to the features, let's see this particular point, that container solve the problem by storing many elements of different data types. However, there are a few limitations in case of container, like container cannot store objects, because this is not the class type of variable. Okay, it's a primitive data type, you can say, or we can say as well as composite type of data type. Container is a composite data type, or which actually allow to store composite data type as well as primitive data type as well. And one of the limitation is the performance implications. We'll discuss about the performance implication in our in few minutes later. Okay, and they can be addressed by collection classes and temporary table concepts. Containers are most frequently used in X++ development, so let us explore some features of the container now. So as you can see, the first point here, X++ container is one of the primitive data type or value type. Container is not a class, so you have to remember this point. Now the next point is saying that a container is a composite data type. So why it is saying composite data type as well as the primitive data type? Because the container can store primitive data type as well as the composite type of data inside it. So that's why we can say it as a composite data type. Now next point, a container is a dynamic list of items containing primitive data type or some composite data type as well. So we already discussed about this point, right? Now if we'll go to the next point, it is saying a container contains an ordered sequence of primitive values or other containers. So sequence is very much important here. It will store all the values in a sequential order. Now if we'll talk about the next point, a container can be stored in a database. If you have already seen our data type video, there is a data type called the container type of data type. So that is actually saying in this point that a container can be stored in the database, and container is one of the column type that you can select when you use the application object tree to add a column to the table. So you can add a container type of column inside your table, or container type of field inside your table you can actually use. So that is the point it is actually talking about here. Okay, now if we'll go to the next point, that you can see a container is slightly resembles with an array or collections such as the list or stack classes, but there is a difference. What is the difference? The difference is you can never change the size of the content of the container after the container is created. So you can change the size of the list, you can change the size of the stack classes, also you can change the array size, but once the size of the container is created, that time it will be fixed. So remember this point. Okay, now let's move to the next point, that is a container is one based, not zero based. So if you already have seen our array video, there is also is the same concept is there, that is also the one indexed system, and everything in the X++ programming language, that is the one based. Okay, now let's move to the next point, that is a container is not a class, therefore classes or objects cannot be passed or put into a container. Okay, so we cannot store objects, or we cannot pass or put inside a container as an object. Okay, so that's you have to remember. Now let's go to the next point, that is a container contains a ordered sequence of value. So values means a primitive data type or other container or some composite data type as well. Okay, so you already discussed about that, right? Now let's move to the next point, that a container is a pass by value system or not a pass by reference type, which actually means that while passing the container, it will pass a copy of the container with values, so it will not pass the reference. Therefore any variable declared as a container is automatically initialized to an empty container that contains no values. Okay, that you have to remember this point. So whenever you will pass the container to a function as well, then it will also be a copy of the value, not it will pass a reference. Okay, now let's move to the next point, that is a container is immutable, which means a container is never modified with any functions. Rather, all X++ statement acting on a container are internally building a new container. So if we'll break down this specific sentence, then in a simple term we can say that in X++ programming language or X++ statement appears to modify a container are internally building a new container and copying value as necessary. Even an assignment of a container to another container variable creates a new copy of the container. Okay, so it means if you will do operations, any kind of operations with container, for example, if you will do any kind of operation like insert, update, delete, then you may think that we are actually extending the size, or we are altering or modifying the actual size of the container, but it's not the true. In the background, what it does, it actually creates a new copy of the container. So that's why if there will be a huge number of operations insert, update and delete, then it will be not best practice to use the container as a data type, because it will impact your performance. So it will slow down your performance. So that's why the performance implication is there if we'll try to use the container. And if the operations like insert, update, delete operation is huge, then it will be not the good practice to use the container on that case. Okay, so here you can see that example. For example, assignment of a container to another container variable and container functions such as conIns, conDel or conpoke, as well as plus, equal, etc. So all this function, conIns function, is present in case of container. So it will help you to insert record inside the container. conDelete function will apply to delete one particular element from the container. In conpoke, it will update the value inside a container. As well as plus equals operator is there, it will concatenate the values to container. Okay, and you may think that we are actually extending or increasing the size of the container, but that is not the case. They are actually creating a new copy of the container. So when we are doing all this kind of insert, update and delete operations from the container. Okay, so in this video we have discussed all about the container and its features. In the next video we'll try to understand and we'll try to write the code that how we can declare container, how to insert the data, how to initialize it, how to access container, and all the related functions, important function also we will discuss in this sequence. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one. Till then, take care. Bye bye.